Assalamu alaikum, dear students. We are here with our new lecture on Greek and Elizabethan literature, and our today's topic is, in fact, it is an introduction to Greek literature, and I named it Foundation of Western Literature. So, Introduction to Greek Literature explore the rich literary history from its archaic beginning to the Hellenistic era. So I will try to explain the various stages and various eras of literature, and that will work for you not only in the class but in the future as well. We will also examine major genres, key authors, and works that shaped Western thoughts. We will uncover universal themes and trace Greek literature profound influence on English literature. As it is my habit that I always start from some kind of chronology, some kind of history of some whatever the paper I'm teaching. So you will be, get introduced with all these things. So major periods of Greek literature. What are these major periods? The one we can say the archaic period from 800 to 500 before Christ. And what was the important genres? Epic poetry and early lyric poetry flourished, laying foundation of myths and forms. You will study in our paper that what are the myths and what are the other relevant concepts of it. And then classical period from 500 to 323 BC, the golden age of Athenian drama, tragedy, comedy, and prose. You know that Athens was the capital of Greece, so that is why it is called Athenian drama. And it also included history and philosophy as well. We know the famous philosophers Plato, Aristotle, and many other names that belong to this period. Then came the Hellenistic period from 323 before Christ to 31. That literary production moved to centers like Alexandria, featuring refined poetry and new comedy. Alexandria was the city that was founded by great Alexander. Then there came the period of Greco-Roman, Byzantine period, preservation of classical text, and continued literary output blending traditions. So these were the periods of classical literature. We had not that much time to discuss here on detail, but we will discuss in a few things in the coming slides. So, foundation of genres of Greek literature. Let us come with it. Epic, historic narratives, and divine interventions establishing mythological frameworks. The epic poems, like the poem of Homer, Iliad, and Virtuous in it. These were the poems, the long narrative poems, when the gods are involved in the combats with human beings and all these mythologies. If you have got introduction with it, it's fine. Otherwise, you will definitely study the epic poems in your coming semesters. Then tragedy, that we are going to study tragedy of Oedipus Rex, and then Shakespearean tragedies. That was a serious drama exploring fate, hubris, which means pride, and human suffering, aiming for catharsis. Then comes comedy, social satire, and political critique through humor, evolving character studies. As we know, the comedy that it is a kind of uh, pleasant work that does not have the elements of tragedy, and more often it was a kind of satire to highlight the follies of the people, follies of the society, to bring some kind of reformation there. Then lyrical poetry that tells about the personal emotions, expressed thought, expressed through songs and verse, often intimate or celebratory. As we know that we sing the songs, listen to the songs, see the songs, and this kind of short poems is known to be lyrical poetry. Then pastoral idealized rural life. So the pastoral elements, in fact, of the village life, rural life, where the life of rural people, village people is depicted, and also we see this lives of shepherds, and that also includes a poetry of nature. Then history, narrative of human events with inquiry and analysis. So history was also a very famous genre in the period of Greek literature. We will discuss a few historians in the coming slides. Enduring influence on English literature. That Greek literature forms and themes have profoundly shaped English literature. The present English literature is definitely influenced by Greek literature, and we often see the glimpses of Greek literature in our uh, present literature. Rather, the Greek literature was the kind of literature that set basis for the literature of the world. It impacts writers from Chaucer and Shakespeare to Milton, the Romantics, the Modernists, and the contemporary authors, establishing a continuous intellectual and artistic lineage. A few big names, including Homer, the dawn of epic poetry. He was the man, is a blind poet who wrote Iliad and Odyssey that established the epic tradition, creating mythological frameworks that would influence all subsequent Western literature. These works present heroic narratives, divine inventions, and universal human struggle. I already have given you introduction to the little introduction to the epics, that these epics were about the human beings and the involvement of the gods in the human beings. And Homer was a master of the epic genre. Hesiod, mythology and practical wisdom. Hesiod's theogony provides the origin of the gods, while works and offers offers didactic poetry on framing morality and justice. He complements Homer's heroic world with practical wisdom and mythological context. He gave the introduction to gods. He introduced his gods of mythologies in his writings, and he gave his justification to the Homer's heroic world. And he, in fact, rationalized these, means tried to rationalize the mythologies. On what were the key characteristics of early Greek epic? It was oral tradition preserved through performers, passed down through generation. We know that literature is divided in two great periods. One is oral, and then comes the written period. So this is the oral period when the literature was not written. It was only performed, and it was memorized and then transferred to the next generation. Tectilic hexameter as the distinctive epic meter defining its rhythmic structure. So most of the time, dactylic hexameter was used. I think you don't have introduction to the meters. What is meter? And we will study this meter while studying the Shakespearean plays. And presently, let me tell you that the Greek epic writers used more than 300 meters in their poetry. Formulaic language and epithetic aiding memorization and improvising during performance. Then divine human interaction, as I told you, that the gods, Devata, the gods were involved with human beings, they were involved in their love making, they were involved in combats, in fighting, and this kind of involvement we can see not only in Greek mythology but also we can see in the Babylon's mythology and Egyptian mythology and all kinds of mythology, even to the present day in Hindu mythology as well. The golden age of drama. The city of Dionysia, festival in Athens, fosters a competitive environment where playwrights presented tragedies and satire plays. So, the play that you're going to study right now, Oedipus Rex and other Greek plays, these were presented in a festival, and there was always a kind of competition of these playwrights, and our Oedipus and Sophocles, the writer of Oedipus, He won that prize more than 20 times. So this era, particularly the 5th century before Christ, saw the innovation and flourishing of dramatic forms that deeply influenced Western literature. So that era developed tragedy, that era developed comedy, although comedy is not uh, found to the present day. But tragedy, there are many tragedies that are preserved and that influence the subsequent history of literature. Herodotus, the father of history, you should remember this name. That he is a big name in the history study. We find the history of Babylon, history of Macedonia, history of ancient uh, people, even before even Semitic people, from the writings of Herodotus. He was a great history writer. That is why he's known to be the father of history. Herodotus' his stories chronicles the Persian Wars, blending historical inquiries with ethnographic observation and engaging storytelling. His work established history as a narrative art from rooted in narrative art form rooted in investigation and cultural understanding. If you ever have a glimpse of Herodotus' writing, you will definitely mesmerized by his art. Then Thucydides' rigorous historical analysis, Thucydides' history of the Peloponnesian Wars employed a rigorous methodology emphasizing accuracy, custodian, and the human elements in historical events. His works aim to be a possession of all time, offering enduring political insights. Literary evolution, the Hellenistic Age. The Hellenistic Age marked a shift in Greek literature, moving towards refined poetry, scholarly pursuits, and new comedic forms. So, see, in Greek literature, tragedy was the highest form, but in the Hellenistic literature, the other aesthetic elements have been added to the literature. The focus broadened from Athens to cultural centers like Alexandria, fostering new literary tastes. Calimax learned poetry and then theories, pastoral ideals. You will read these slides yourself, and I will also share with you the PDF of this presentation. Then, Menander, new comedy and character studies. Menander shifted Greek comedy from political style to focus on domestic situations, romantic entanglements, and detailed character studies. His plays reflect everyday life and social dynamics become highly influential for later Roman comedy and beyond. So, see, in Greek period, the comedy the comedy was focused on the rich class or the elite class. But what happened here that these writers, and especially our writer Menendro, he shifted the focus from the high class to the middle class and to the people who existed there in the common places, and he exploited their domestic situations, their domestic incidents to create comedy. That because it was a comedy of the domestic people, it was a comedy of the common people. That is why it got great admiration. Alexandria, a beacon of scholarship. So what happened in Alexandria? Textual scholarship and editing established definitive version of the classical work. So now see the textual writing and editing started there. Then literary criticism and analysis, developing theories of rhetoric and poetic form. Learned, elusive poetry, showcasing intellectual depth and mastery of tradition. And then preservation of classical works, safeguarding invaluable literary heritage for future generation. So these were the modern changes that occurred in Alexandria. The texts were edited and saved and safeguarded, and they were preserved. And that is why we can still find these texts. Greek literature in the Roman and Byzantine eras. It is the influence of Greek literature. The Greek literature continued to flourish under Roman rule, with authors like Plutarch and Lucian, and contributing significant works that spanned history, biography, and satire. The Byzantine Empire became a crucial custodian of preserving countless classical Greek text through diligent copying and scholarship. So see, the Byzantine Empire, they worked upon Greek literature and they preserved it, and that is why we can still have that access to these wonderful pieces of literature. Then there came the new forms of religious and scholarly literature emerged, blending classical heritage and Christian thought that contributing to rich inflecting. Byzantine was Christianized, and when it was Christianized, so religious literature was also introduced, and that was the reason that a new kind of literature, a new kind of writing were inculcated in the history of literature. Greek literature fundamental human experience that transcend time and culture, addressing question we continue to grapple with today. So the Greek literature had universal themes. So the themes of pride, themes of fate, themes of self-existence, themes of human follies, and uh, all these elements that are universal and they do exist till the time. These enduring themes offer profound insight into the human condition, morality, and society, and cornerstone of Western thought. So all these elements still exist. That is why the themes of Greek literature were universal. One of the biggest themes was that fate versus free will. The tension between destiny and human choice. Are we bound by forces beyond our control? This is what we will study in Oedipus Rex, where man tries to fight with his fate, but he fails and he has to obey the gods, or he is destined to obey the gods or the will of the gods. We will study this in our Oedipus Rex. Hubris, excessive pride leading to downfall. Again, that will you will find that example in Oedipus Rex. That is, in fact, the now we are laying foundation to study Oedipus Rex. So keeping all these topics and themes in your mind, that will be the part of Oedipus. Xenia, the sacred duty of hospitality to stranger, ensuring protection and social order in society. See, that was the duty of the sacred duty. Means that the kind of religious duty of the people to welcome every stranger and to entertain him. So that will also become the hallmark of the play. Read, striving for excellence and virtue, the pursuit for honor, courage, and achievement in all endeavors. So that was the hallmark of Greek people. That was the hallmark of these history writers. That they have to achieve the great name in the history. They have to achieve character. They have to achieve the honor. They have to be courageous, and they have to achieve all they wanted to achieve. Hero's journey, departure, initiation, and return. Transformative adventure that shapes the hero and brings wisdom. So, hero is never a straight or linear character. Hero is always a complex character that goes through various stages of life and learns. It has an enduring influence on English literature. The profound impact of Greek literature can be traced through centuries of English writing, from early medieval adaptation to Renaissance period, Romantics, and so we see and we will study that this Greek literature influenced all the subsequent history of literature. So see here that from medieval to contemporary voices, this Greek literature influence in medieval Renaissance, Chaucer and Shakespeare integrated Greek myths and forms, laying groundwork of classical reception and adaptation. You see, Chaucer and Shakespeare were inspired of medieval literature of Greece, and we find various examples from here. 17th, 18th century, we know Milton's Paradise Lost echoed epic tradition. Augustan writers that were from the 18th century drew on classical ideals and of reason and order. In your paper of history of English literature, you will study these Augustan writers, and definitely you will find the traces of Greek literature as well. Romantics, we know that Keats, John Keats is also known to be a Greek poet. It is one of the title that he has achieved. So Keats and Shelley found inspiration in Greek and mythologies, reinterpreting themes of beauty, freedom, and passion. In modernist period, writers like James Joyce, Eliot engaged with classical narratives to explore contemporary alienation and complex human experience. In Eliot's famous poem Wasteland, we find numerous uh, references of these classical periods. In contemporary legacy, we see Shimasini and other modern authors who give the traces of Greek works. You will understand these concepts better when you will go through these pieces of literature, these eras of uh, s- literature. So it is the living legacy of literature, timeless themes. We already have discussed all these things, so we will skip it. And let me end this lecture with the hope that you will listen to it, you will watch it, and there may be few things that are not understandable for you right now, but keep this in store. You can download it, you can use it. It is all your property, so you can use it anywhere. I allow all my audience to do it. And when you will go through the various eras of history in your paper of history of English literature, and when we'll go through the different eras of literature, then you will better understand all these things. This is the, you can say, the foundation stone that will help you to find the traces of these wonderful pieces of literature in your coming history, in your coming studies. So thank you very much for today. See you in the next lecture with the introduction to deeper sex. Thank you very much, sir.